You want to see how bad the mainstream media is to progressives, right? So they're still doing it. So they're getting behind Elizabeth Warren, which makes me suspicious. Doesn't it make you suspicious of that the mainstream media gets behind Elizabeth Warren?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, they're a little too comfortable with her. She doesn't make them uncomfortable. So here's Politico. In poll after poll, by the way, this is from July 12th. In poll after poll, Sanders appeals to lower income and less educated people, men and younger people who vote less frequently.
Oh, okay.
So if you're an idiot and you just want free shit, you're going to vote for Bernie. But while Warren's camp consists of people with postgraduate degrees, women, and seniors who follow politics closely.
Oh, the more informed American.
Yes.
Oh, I got it.
So if you're a dummy who doesn't know anything, you're going to vote for fucking Bernie Sanders.
You don't know shit.
But if you're smart and you follow stuff and you know the 411, you're going to go Elizabeth Warren. That's what Politico's done. Well, men go for her. I mean, men go for Bernie, but women go for her. Turns out that's not even true, but we're going to get to it. Here's what Ron Placone says. He says, by less educated, they mean people without master's degrees and higher. Among people who have bachelor's degrees, Warren and Bernie are pretty much the same. Bernie's actually slightly higher. This tweet is condescending and misleading on multiple levels. And that's all they got, baby. That's an establishment news organization. And now what are they going to do? Tell you the fucking truth about a progressive politician, or are they going to misinform you? That's exactly what they did. And they condescended to you at the same time. So, so Ron, you saw that. So
I tweeted that, yep.
So people with bachelor's degree, it's pretty much split. In fact, Bernie's is a little bit better.
Bernie's a little bit better on bachelor's degrees. So yeah, it was condescending and misleading on multiple levels.
Yeah, as if...
I mean, first of all, just because you have a degree doesn't make you smarter than anybody else
That's
necessarily,
right.
First of all. But second of all, what they were trying to hint at there, where it's like, oh, well, the higher educated, blah, blah, they just mean postgraduate and higher.
Yes.
Which basically, the one thing you could probably take from that statistic is people with higher incomes, people in higher tax brackets tend to go for Elizabeth Warren over
regular
Bernie Sanders.
people more like Bernie.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't go on because they're worried about student debt.
That's right. So, it's, what's it called? A perturbed... whatever that is, says this article shows Bernie has more supporters from almost every group. So if you read this, they break it down, right? So Elizabeth Warren gets 11% of the 18 to 29-year-old vote, whereas Bernie Sanders, he gets 25% of the 30 to 40. So they make it hard for you to decipher what all this shit means. I think that's why they put it that way, because if they broke it down in an easy way, it would look something like this. 20% of men support Sanders and 11% of men support Warren. 18% of women support Sanders, 14% of women support Warren. So that wasn't even true, their headline, that women tend to support Warren more. That's not even true. The headline of this could have been, Bernie Sanders does better in every category of voters than Elizabeth Warren. But instead, what did they make it? What did they make the headline? Oh, in poll after poll, Sanders appeals to lower income, less educated people. They could have said, in poll after poll, Bernie Sanders outpolls Elizabeth Warren in almost every category except super old people. They could have. That's why I think they put it in this really hard to understand way. But just, there it is. Bernie outpolls Elizabeth Warren with women by 4%. That should be the headline.
Speaking of the older people thing, I love how the same people who are like, well, Bernie just doesn't pull well with old people are the same people who are like, Bernie's too old to run.
Here it is, Ron. I made it in a thing. The media, Bernie's too old to run. Also the media, Bernie doesn't appeal to old people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So that could have been the headline. Bernie outpolls her with millennials. Bernie outpolls. The only thing she beats Bernie with are people 65 and older. Let me double check that. So Elizabeth Warren, but again, the way they put this, she has support 12% of those aged 45 to 54. She has 13% of those aged both 55 to 64 and 65 and up. So she gets 13% of people 55 to 64, whereas Bernie Sanders gets 12% of people 55 to 64. There couldn't be close. So that's the only two categories she beats him
And
on.
then 65 and up, she's got him 13 to 8.
13 to 8.
Yeah, there's just like, arrange the numbers all in a row so nobody reads it.
Yep.
If we put a bunch of numbers in, they won't read it. They'll just focus on our bullshit tweet.
Warren also performs best among voters who are extremely interested in politics. Fuck off. That's such a bullshit. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. This is what Politico writes. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are two of the most ideologically aligned candidates in the Democratic primary, both left-wing populists who rail against a rigged economic system. Oh, yes, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are two of the most ideologically aligned candidates. It's kind of like a genuine Rolex and a knockoff. That's what it's like. That's what it's like to me. Is that what it's like to our panel?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, Sanders has won over more African-American voters than Elizabeth Warren. That could have also been your headline. Your headline could have been Bernie beating Elizabeth Warren with African-Americans and women. But that doesn't feed the establishment narrative, does it? No. That's why they do it this way. Younger people who vote less frequently are more often in Sanders' camp. Seniors who follow politics closely generally prefer Warren. See, if you're a dummy and you don't know how things work, you're going to vote for Sanders because he's promising you free stuff. But if you're smart and you get it, you're going to vote for Elizabeth Warren. Again, couldn't be more condescending to the people who support Bernie Sanders.
And if you follow politics closely, wouldn't you notice that Elizabeth Warren changes her tune every other week?
Yeah, wouldn't you notice that Bernie
that?
Sanders is actually more consistent with the same policies? You wouldn't notice that?
Yeah, so I'm curious how they came to these conclusions.
Yes. In Morning Consult, Reuters Ipsos and Washington Post ABC News polls, more Sanders supporters named by, this is the thing that is mind-blowing. So in all these polls, Morning Consult, Reuters Ipsos, Washington ABC News poll, more Sanders supporters named as their second choice Joe Biden over Elizabeth Warren. Well, they didn't even ask about Tulsi. I mean, that's what I would me. 1 and 2 is Tulsi Biden, and then Elizabeth Warren is a distant third. A distant third. So isn't that weird that in these polls, people who say they support Bernie Sanders, their second choice is Biden and not Elizabeth Warren or Tulsi Gabbard?
I mean, again, and it's like I wonder kind of how they got to that.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it could have just been like out of the people polled who preferred
Right.
Bernie, like their second thing. They might not really have a second choice. So
Right.
They just went name recognition.
Yeah,
Like I'd be curious to see how they got there.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think that's suspect. A higher percentage of Warren voters pick Kamala Harris as their number 2. They don't pick Bernie Sanders, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, this article just told us how closely aligned they are.
Yeah,
So
that doesn't make sense. Warren, meanwhile, is aggressively working to win African-American support. That's just funny. They say she's aggressively. She's not. She doesn't have more support than Bernie. Has Bernie been more aggressive than her? Like, it's just why you can just, their bias is just flies off the page. It's all, once you see it, you can't not see it and see it everywhere. And I'm sure whoever wrote this goddamn article for Politico will go, I'm not biased. I'm sure you don't think you are. I would not. Well, thinking that people who write for newspapers aren't told what to write is naive. And they already know what to write. They are meaning that they know what they know what's going to get printed. It's just like what Greg Palast told us about the 2000 election, and Jake Tapper was like, "I don't want to investigate all this voting stuff that they purging because that's not going to help my career." And he's right; it's not going to help. Look at Greg Palast. Look at Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper's #1 host on CNN, and Greg Palast comes on my show, and I'm glad to have him. He's a great reporter.
he's gotten to do some amazing things.
He does great work. Does great work. It's weird. It's weird to see progressives pushing Elizabeth Warren uncritically. It's weird to see that happen. Progressives pushing Elizabeth Warren uncritically.
Well, whenever you tell somebody, aren't you a little worried about her sincerity, and they look at you like you have lobsters crawling out of your ears or something like that, and it's like, well, you're not? Like, what do you mean you're not? Like, she changes her tune.
Oh, we're going to get that
so
Adam
often.
Green guy from that Progressive Change Campaign Committee thing. That he walks around, he has the Warren wing on his button, on his lapel.
Warren Wing?
Warren wing.
That's a thing now?
That's what he wears.
Okay.
And you know, Adam's a good progressive, what have you. I don't understand him siding with Warren for the same reasons we're saying, right? Why wouldn't he be pushing Bernie Sanders, who he knows is going to be consistent and not waver? So I asked him to come on the show, and he ducked it a few times. We'll see. He's just responded to me on Twitter. I've been DMing him, trying to shame him into coming on the show, and that normally does not work. So the key, but the lucky thing I have is I don't give a fuck if people come on the show or not. If they come on, great. But if they don't, also great. This show's not about access. This show didn't become popular because of the guests. So we'll see. He just responded to me on Twitter. I'll check it out. Maybe we'll get him on. So I have a couple of questions. You know, Elizabeth Warren, she's signaled she's going to take. She didn't say it in those words, I'm going to take corporate money, but she certainly intimated.
She hinted to it.
She hinted she was going to.
Yeah.
She intimated that she was going to. And why, you know, that's, again, unless you want to, you know, it doesn't take a great detective to figure out what she's hinting at, right? I mean, this isn't a Rubik's Cube. I see what she's going. I see how she's leaving herself room to fucking backpedal and turn. And I see exactly what's happening.
Well, and she's done it before.
And of course
she's
she
done
has.
with Medicare for All. She's done it. I mean,
That's right.
You know,
I don't know. Did anybody get prosecuted? Anybody
From the
who were in
banks?
charge of the banks?
No.
Anybody there?
No.
I mean, because I see
no,
her
but they got a talking to.
tongue lashing, boy.
That's right. A finger wagging.
Man, I mean, seriously, I'm so troubled because when I just talk to people casually, they'll say, I really like Kamala. And I'm like, what do you like about her?
I know. Well, I think she could stand up against Trump. Oh, boy. Okay. Again, if
First off, I want to know what she stands for.
Right?
Before she stands up to Trump.
Well, she says she's for Medicare for All, then immediately backtracks. Immediately. All the time.
Yes.
So, I mean, she, as Caitlin Johnson points out, she will dead end the left for 8 years if she becomes president. Just like Barack Obama did. And everybody will go to sleep. And then we'll wake up when we get a worse Trump. Like, did you know that they have cages? Did you know that they're deporting people? Do you know that we're bombing 8 countries? Did you know that we shouldn't be in these wars? Did you know they keep passing tax cuts for rich people? So at least, you know, when you get someone like a Barack Obama, or I would predict a Kamala Harris as president, the left would go to sleep and they wouldn't be outraged by anything. I mean the liberal class. I don't mean actual. And for whatever reason, you know, there aren't yellow vests. There isn't this big, you know, this whole country was started on a revolution, and we definitely need another one. Hey, we just added St. Louis and Honolulu to our live tour schedule. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our live shows. We might be coming to your town. Go check right now at jimmydorecomedy.com. And if you like the show and want to support it, become a premium member. You can become a patron or through PayPal, or go right to jimmydorecomedy.com and become a premium member. That's the best way. We'll see you at a live show.